Hey guys, this is going to be a different type of video than I've normally put out. So we have winter weather coming into Connecticut this week. Got me thinking, now that the season's going to slow down a little bit, what type of mods can I do to make my rig better for next season? Then I thought a little bit more about it. So I thought about the 3 things that I did right last season and 3 things that I did wrong. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over those 3 things, good and bad, that I did, and then I'm going to challenge 3 other YouTubers to do the same. So stick around to the end of the video to see who I pick. The first thing that I did that I thought was right was go with long arm. Now, everyone is kind of leery on the cost. However, for me, the cost was totally worth it. I got a much better ride. The Jeep Flex is much better. I can climb up on bigger rocks without twisting the body too much. And overall, it's the first thing I did right. Really, the downside is the cost. The upside, capability, tunability, comfort, you name it, it's there. One thing I definitely did wrong on this Jeep, and I'm not ashamed to say it, is when I bought this thing, it was literally going to be a budget, get it on the trail for as cheap as possible rig. Now, I started off with that. That's how I, kind of progressed through this build for the first, I don't know, maybe 6 months. However, now I'm kind of paying for that about 1.5 years, 2 years later. I replaced the CPS with a no-name CPS, and now I'm getting a CPS code again when I should have just ponied up the money, went Mopar, and do an OEM replacement. Also, same thing with O2 sensors. I went out and bought the cheaper O2 sensors from Rock Auto, and I drove it, and literally I think about maybe 100 miles later I was still getting O2 sensors. I went back and I think I'm using NGKs or NGTs or NTKs, something like that, but it's what come from the factory, and I haven't had a problem with my O2 since, and that's been over 1.5 years. So, if you're going to build this thing for everyday use, don't skip on the good stuff, especially tune-up parts, plugs, wires, cap, rotor, electrical stuff. Pony up for the good stuff, because you're going to end up kicking yourself in the long run. You're going to buy it twice and essentially pay for what the right part would have been the first time. Second thing I did right was to go with the frame stiffeners. Now, the unibodies on the XJ were only meant to handle so much, and through the rigors of either time or off-roading, they start to wear and start to deteriorate, also with rot. I live in the Northeast. So the frame stiffeners were a really big plus for me, because it really adds some rigidity to the rig and makes it that I have a little bit more kind of confidence in the structural integrity of the Jeep. Not to mention, with the addition of rock sliders and things like that, it gives me something to weld to. Welding to sheet metal for some structural stuff just doesn't really, seem right. This, doubles down on the unibody rail and makes the rig much more stable and rigid, as I say. Another thing I did wrong was wait to go and get armor for this Jeep. Now, behind this plate right here, my rear quarter, my rear quarter panel on the passenger side, I have basically from here down, I caved this in. I was going down a ravine and backed up into an exposed rock and root that I couldn't see, and I caved this in, causing damage to the rig and things like that. So, having rear quarter panel armor, or just armor in general, has always been on my list. I know everybody runs out to get bumpers first thing, because it's fun to look at, it's fun to have, it opens up possibilities, winches, recovery points, and things like that. But some things that people really tend to not think about is rocker armor, recorder armor, things like that. Unless you're really just taking it into the woods to beat the ever living crap out of it and get rid of it, and you're not planning on keeping it for the long run, invest in armor. It's a little pricey, but it's gonna extend the life of your vehicle. Ever since I've done the armor, my confidence has gone up. My ability to kind of get in and out of tighter, more elaborate obstacles you know, I go in saying, hey, I got the armor. If I hit something, I'm going to hit armor. So, you know, my ability's gone up, the quality of the obstacles has gone up, so kind of keep that in mind. And another thing I did right on this Jeep was go through and get all upgraded cables from, I believe I got them from K-Suspension, as well as go through the chassis and clean up all the grounds. Now when I got this Jeep, I had a really bad um, laundry list of electronical gremlins. So to kind of combat that, I first, literally I think the day I got it, I went through and cleaned all the grounds, and that cleaned up about 80% of my issues. For anywhere from a erroneous transmission code, my wipers would go on and off, you know, without hitting the switch, you name it, all types of weird stuff. You clean up the ground, you upgrade the cables, and that got rid of a giant number of my electrical issues. One thing to also keep in mind along with the upgraded cables is that the XJ did come out of the factory with smaller than desired electrical gauge wire. You know, really a lot of the stuff that we're using on these Jeeps is for one, is old, so it deteriorates over time, and second, it's undersized for a lot of what we do, especially nowadays with a lot of electrical things that we're putting on Jeeps, lights, lockers, air compressor systems, you know, audio systems, those type of things. You definitely want to upgrade and get something a little bit better that can handle that. So, you know, just to kind of keep that in perspective. And the last place I really feel like I made some mistakes was the steering. You know, not going to true crossover or not using upgraded components. I'm still using the factory drag link with an upgraded tie rod. Now, you know, when you're just doing trail stuff, that's fine. However, I'm looking to get bigger, get into something a little bit more aggressive. This isn't going to cut it. I've already bent the drag link. I actually hit from time to time on my sway bar mounts and things like that, which I got to cut. But really, you know, you can get good kits from anywhere from $250 to $500 depending on what you're looking for and the quality of the stuff. You know, Heim joints or, you know, regular ball and socket type joints. You know, to each his own. You know, I really feel that I've been putting this off. I delayed getting better stuff sooner, and now I'm paying for it. So I'm hopefully in the wintertime going to be doing a full crossover WJ knuckle swap. And yeah, that's my those are my big three, good and bad. Those are my 3 good and 3 bad. Now, I'd like to hear back from you guys. What are some things that you've done to your Jeeps that you feel were big wins and some that you were big losses? Let's see what you guys come up with. And now on to the challenge. I'm going to take 3 YouTubers and ask them the same question. What are the 3 things they did right, 3 things that they did wrong? And those 3 YouTubers are going to be The Bearded Jeeper, Nikki G, and The Bugs Life. Come on, guys. Let's keep this rolling. What 3 things have you done right and 3 things that you've done wrong?